John, coming back to Harvard is like coming home for you, isn't it?
It's great. I've only been back 2 or 3 times in, what is it, about, oh my God, 17 years. And the last time was 8 years ago, so.
You graduated in '67, is that right?
Yeah.
You spoke to a group of students today, and you had several messages for them in light of their futures as actors.
Well, I talked to a small group of undergraduates today who were seriously interested in acting, and they were sort of ambivalent and anxious. They're having a good time at Harvard, and they're certainly active as actors, but they're worried about whether this stands them in good stead getting into conservatories or getting into the business period. And I just told them they didn't know how lucky they are. First of all, to be at Harvard. Second of all, to be young.
Yes, that's true. I'll go for that.
The first time I ever acted in New York and really got underway as an actor, I was 27 years old.
Was that the changing room?
Yeah.
Really? Did you know that that would be your future? You started really with your father producing outside of Dayton, Ohio, a Shakespeare company, and you were 6 years old and played in Henry VI, or what was it?
Yes. I played the child who's been killed by his father in Henry VI, Part 3.
So did you know this would be it for you?
No, I thought my lot was not unlike the child killed by his father in Henry VI, Part 3, that I would continue working in repertory theater and playing the living library. I worked for my dad first at Princeton at the McCarter Theater, directing and acting and playing Troilus and Cressida and Mice and Men and Pygmalion, Coming to Broadway finally, it was from another regional theater, the Long Wharf, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I was actually playing New York, getting great reviews, getting a Tony Award.
Yeah.
This was like, and then there was a brand new, not even an ambition to act in movies. I just never figured I'd act in movies. I'll be a New York actor,
And it happened.
And that happens too.
You've been quoted as saying, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. Is that a part of it?
Well, that's my own personal little joke, although there's something to it. I don't know. Being very, very different from part to part has much more to do with the part than with me. I mean, I'm lucky enough to now have a reputation as an actor who is ready, willing, and able to try anything, to make a total fool of myself. I have certain directors to thank for that. They've really encouraged me. They've shoved me up over the top. I was a rather timid movie actor. Coming from the stage, you tend to be sort of wary. You want to make sure you don't play to the 40th row, don't do anything too big, keep your gestures small. Well, then along comes someone like George Miller, who directed my episode of The Twilight Zone.
4 stories in one, that was the intention. And yet, in the middle of the shoot, Vic Morrow was killed in this helicopter accident, tragic accident, and so were 2 young children. It cast a pallor, it seemed, over the entire film. It never quite recovered, even at the box office. But how did everyone cope?
Everything was different. Vic died, and the 2 children died in the first of the 4 episodes. Each of them was virtually going to be a different movie anyway, but when the accident happened, they shut down everything for about 2 or 3 months. By the time they decided to go ahead with the movie at all, they'd replaced every single technician. The directors were different anyway. It was as if we were working on something that had nothing to do with the accident, and as you can imagine, it was kind of, it was such a sad, tragic issue for everyone. People didn't even talk about it. Unfortunately, it really emerged again when the movie was all put together, and I don't think the movie ever escaped from its shadow.
No. Your character in The World According to Garp, Roberta Muldoon, was very loved. Why?
Why was Roberta so loved?
Yeah.
I think she was the friend that everybody would love to have. She was almost the embodiment of the perfect friend. And I think that had something to do with her her somewhat dual sexuality. I mean, she was a woman, but there was enough of her masculine history in her, that she was almost both male and female. She was sensitive, compassionate, sweet and gentle as a woman, but she was fiercely protective and strong on behalf of her friends as a man. And, you know, she combined those two qualities, and that's what all of us are looking for in friendship, you know.
Do you find those same qualities in the lady in your life?
Yes, my wife has sweetness and fierceness in spades, both. She's a great woman. She's terrifically independent. She's a wonderful scholar and professor at UCLA. But she's a sweetheart. It's funny to boast about your wife or to praise your wife on television, but she deserves it.
So things are good for you. Well, Harvard was definitely the place to begin.
This is the first time in years I felt like a Harvard man.
That's great.
What a special man, John Lithgow. And you know, he shared something with me that was not included in that interview. He said that he was truly a today husband. He spends a lot of time in the kitchen. He cooks a lot. And it's odd because Janet was just telling me before the show that last night her husband Bob asked her if they could go someplace different for dinner. The kitchen.
The kitchen, I think that's the room off from the living room.